I can check on that. Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Inglewood City Council. It's November 6th. It's about 2 minutes after 6. We'll open with the study session topics. First up is Director of Finance Jackie Loh, here to review the monthly financial report. And those folks who are watching probably realize that I am not the mayor. I'm Steve Ward, Mayor Pro Tem. The mayor is traveling and may be joining us online later this evening, but I'll be presiding over the meeting tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm going to present to you the September 2023 monthly financial report for the general fund. Also want to inform council members of the financial impact of EIF dissolution. Through September 2023, the city's general fund revenues total $50.48 million. Which is 78.5% budgeted revenue, or $3.18 million, higher than the same time period. The total revenue year to date is tracking 6.7% higher than the same period in 2022. The major line item for property tax, through September 2023, the city has received $8.67 million in property tax. Of that total, $5.1 million went to the general fund, $818,000 went to EDDA, and the rest went to the debt service fund. Another major revenue line item is sales use taxes. The sales use tax remittance total $31.35 million and are 2.8% of budgeted revenue. Sales use tax revenue is $2.1 million, higher than the same time last year. The tax and use tax audits and voluntary disclosure collection amount to $76,000. Another major line item is license permits. The year-to-date number is down by $592,000 compared to 2022 due to several large building permits in 2022. I want to bring to your attention to the investment earnings are $895,000 higher than the same time last year. The 2022 losses are unrealized losses due to the interest hikes. So also exclude all the one-time revenue. You can see for the month of September last year, we received $1.1 million for the stadium district refund for the sale of the Bronco Stadium. So we subtract that $1.1 million from 2022 because that's a one-time, not a part of our normal operating activities. And this is the sales use taxes revenue, the top 11 historical revenue sources by industries. You can take a look. And also we included the refunds for 2022 and 2023 for comparison. The 2023 refund is not related to errors in tax payments. It's one company accidentally remit their payroll taxes to the city, not to the state. And also let's take a look at expenditures. The expenditures year to date are $54.85. This is the expenditures by departments. The total expenditures are $45.84 million, which is 70.7% of budgeted expenditures. The total expenditures year to date are $3.28 million, or 7.7% higher than the same time last year. As discussed, the majority of variances are due to the 5% COLA adjustment for payroll and 2% inflationary increase approved by council in June. In 2 weeks from today, we're going to request approximately $1 million, but it's supplemental for class account implementation. So 5% plus 2% plus $1 million, 2%, the total 9% increase in the personnel line. And also the debt service include $2.8 million. Of that, 1.4 is 2022 actual. This is another way to look at our expenditures by category: personnel, commodities, contractual services, capital. I want to point it out, you probably noticed we had a massive paving activities in October on Broadway. We finished the project around October 20th, which means we still have a large outstanding invoice coming from October. So when you see the expenditures, total 54.84 million, which means we still have probably approximately 2 million outstanding in October that were included in our October financial report. So this is the way we can see our operating surplus in comparison to 2022. 2023, the operating surplus is 4.64 million. And for 2022, once we back out the one time, we had a 4.74 million. You can see, we are really comparable to the same time last year. But let me bring you back to the revenue line. If you see the investment earnings for 2023, we had investment earnings unrealized gain and compared to the unrealized losses. So you can see the difference increase compared to same time last year, 895,000. These are all unrealized gains and losses. So we need to subtract that from the comparison. If that's the case, if you see the surplus, probably you need to subtract 1 million from 2023 in order to get a real comparison. And plus outstanding invoices for October, which makes sense because 2022 is an abnormal year with a 16% higher sales use taxes compared to 2022. So I took a look at the 2021 September surplus. We had probably 2.8 million. So if we add more invoices, outstanding invoices to the surplus, then compared to 2021, so which means we're spending down the sales use taxes for the intended purposes. This is to show the transfer out in. We transfer in about $138,000 for public improvement fund for debt services, and we also transfer out $3.2 million for all the capital related projects and also for new employees' IT costs. So the net transfer out is $3 million for 2023. And we'll probably have more transfer out after we calculate the TIF for EDDA. That would be additional transfer out from our fund balance. Then you can see the fund balance composition 2023. The net change in fund balance is about 1.54 million. That balance includes the one-time surplus and deficit, but we really don't have one-time for 2023, and also the transfer out, the 3 million. Then you can see the composition. We still have a restricted table, 1.1 million, and later committed by council members. Council member can uncommit that balance. And ARPA funding, we still have $360,000 yet to spend. The district stadium, the restricted funding for youth activities, $502,000. We plan to spend down probably $320,000 for the train in Bellevue. Then we have unrestricted reserve, 16.7% revenue. At the end of 2023 September, the unassigned fund balance is estimated at 11.85 million. Then we'll talk about the financial impact of EVE dissolution. Then we appreciate council's unwavering support. So EVE resigned as a property manager for common area maintenance camp on August 2nd, however, not effective until last week, November 2nd. We also submitted all the reports to the county. As of September 25th, the lease agreements between the city and EVE was terminated. The title to all EVE properties transferred to the city. So all other EVE assets, liabilities were transferred to the city's balance sheet and included in our audited 2023 annual comprehensive financial report. Because currently we report EVE as a component unit, reported separately from city's financial. Now the EVE's assets liabilities were included in the city's financial. Additional impact for 2023, effective November 3rd, all camp-related expenditures and revenues will be accounted for in the general fund public works. So we created a new divisions project code for public works. I want to bring to council's attention, we may require a 2023, the final budget supplemental, the true up, to cover any new camp costs from November 3rd until December 31st. Tentatively, we're scheduled for April or May 2024. So 2 weeks from today, we are going to do another budget amendment to council on November 20th. We will present to council all the budget amendments for 2023, but for camp, it's a little bit hard to forecast with the snow activity. So we are proposing to present the final true up in early 2024. And 2024, we would definitely need to have a budget amendment because the camp budget was included in EVE. Now camp budget will be included in public works. So we need to include revenue expenditures in the general fund public works department budget. So we just want to inform council what is coming, what to expect. So when council receive these requests, it's definitely not an oversight or afterthought. It's totally dependent upon timing, and we are monitoring the timing very carefully. This concludes my presentation for tonight. Do you have any question about our September financial and financial impact of EVE dissolution?
Thank you, Director Loh. Member Woodward, I believe you were first.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the Inglewood Environmental Foundation dissolution, on that first bullet point, the new CAM costs from November through the December 31, and then April to May, those should be reimbursed by tenants and LNR, correct? In 2024, or accounted for probably in 2024?
Yeah, the current funding formula is each camp participant has a fixed rate, but that rate will be adjusted by CPI every year. But the RTD has probably 27%, and the rest will be absorbed by the city. So this is our current formula. The camp manager, the property management, will be reimbursed 7% for their services.
Okay, and Public Works, will they receive for their services of the counting of all this some sort of fee?
Yes, we submitted a property management RFP last month, and we probably receive the proposal in December. Then if we choose to outsource the service, we are going to bring the budget supplemental to council first, then we're going to sign the contract 2 weeks later.
Okay, so I believe then it will be a break-even, worst case is break-even type situation. It's just a matter of when the billing happens, when the funds come in, but...
Very good question. This is exactly, we have a conversation, talk about the funding formula to make sure the revenue will cover direct, indirect costs. Right?
Thank you.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So my question is, was there any money left in the budget when EVE dissolved?
Another excellent question. We do have, when we say that assets will be transferred to the city's balance sheet, assets include cash investment and fixed assets. So we're projecting after we pay off all the legal fees, all the outstanding contractual services, we'll have some residual that will be transferred to the city, that this will be reflected in here. Our fund balance, we're going to insert another line, probably transfer from EVE, then council member can commit that balance for any purpose, or can combine that balance with a later fund.
So could that not be used to pay for the CAM fees instead of doing a budget supplemental?
But a camp fee, we're expecting the property management fee cost will be higher than the cash will be received. But council can definitely committed that transfer net assets to pay for the property management, but that may not be enough.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Director Loh, just about the general financial health of the city. When we look at the revenues, we're at a little bit of a risk from what I can tell of painting a sunnier picture than what's actually there, because we increase taxes in the current cycle. And we also have these investments, which you were kind enough to clarify our investment status. But as we're looking towards the end of the year, how are we looking to complete our revenue cycle? Is it I think you anticipated a surplus of 1.5, something like that, at the end of the net change in fund balance for 2024, or 2023 rather.
But
Excuse me.
compared to the budget, we had a budgeted operating deficit, probably $500,000 with all the transfer in and transfer out. But we're still, compared to the budget, we're still $4.6 million, even if we minus $2 million for outstanding taxes, still $2.6 million. So compared to the budget, we're still ahead of the game.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much for your presentation, Director Loh.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd, Deputy Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf, Brad Anderson, Carson, Bise, and Tishler Bise will be present to discuss the development and impact fees.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So I'll do a really quick introduction, then I'll turn it over to our consultant, Carson Bise from Tishler Bise, who's on the call this evening. This is a study that we began this summer. Development impact fees, and our consultant will tell you more about the details, but what governs them. But essentially, they're fees that we can recoup for development. So it could be residential and non-residential, and there's a variety of different methodologies that could obtain the funds. Sometimes they're based on residential fees, sometimes they're based on other kinds of impact like transportation. He did a great job. He came out to the city. He's based in Washington, D.C. He came to the city twice this summer and fall and met with a variety of departments. What you're going to see tonight is a proposal that includes 4 development impact fees, 2 for police, 1 that involves vehicles, 1 for buildings, and then 1 for parks and 1 for transportation, which obviously involves public works. These have to be for new items that are the cause of development. So they cannot be for like refurbishments. So it can't be, to put a new floor in the rec center. It could be to add a new program to the rec center or build out the rec center, but it couldn't be for, basically refurbishments or just improvements of capital assets. So I will turn it over to Mr. Bise to do the presentation. And just want to check, City Clerk, do you have the presentation for this? Or? Oh, great. Thank you.
Yes, we can. Mayor Pro Tem, may I interrupt?
Yes.
I just wanted to report that we did have issues on the video feed with sound only from the speaker that's on Zoom, but we are working on that. Apparently everything else is working, but just wanted to let council know about that.
And we'll be capturing that audio on whatever recording we
Correct.
publish.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Was the public not able to hear the feed?
The public could not hear the consultant, Mr. Bise, on Zoom, correct?
Then I have problems moving forward with this. Thank you.
I actually tend to agree. What's the time sensitivity on this particular agenda item, City Manager?
There's no specific sensitivity. I mean, basically tonight we're seeking two things. One is to just present information to you, and then the second one is your direction about whether or not you want to see an ordinance for any of these fees. So, I mean, obviously with development coming up, I mean, it would impact, depending on when the developments happen, but there is no specific time frame.
Well, I don't relish the possibility of having to do that entire presentation over again. I am sensitive to Member Russell's point, and I will entertain a motion if we want to conclude the study session and resume at 7 p.m.
I move to conclude the study session and resume at 7 p.m.
I will second that. And so with that, if there's any comments, Member Anderson?
Am I understanding then that the audio was not captured or recorded for the presenter in any way, or?
Thanks for the question. The audio was captured from the room and will be part of the YouTube feed. I believe we can make that. I need to verify on the YouTube, but it was captured in the recording of the meeting. It's just not coming through for some reason on the Zoom link speaker was not coming through in the audio for the live stream, but it is, I believe, being recorded for the room recording. I'm getting a yes.
Councilmember Noonan-Camp has her hand up.
Member Ninenkamp? My concern with that, frankly, is that we have 25 minutes left for this particular topic, and it may be a little bit thicker than we expect as far as the amount of discussion. So I don't think we would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish in that 25 minutes anyway. Although I do appreciate that suggestion, and the thought had crossed my mind. Anyone else? We'll take a moment here. Our city manager is currently talking to our AV staff, so we'll just take 2 minutes here real quick. Member Anderson? Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, just wanting a little more information. Does this mean that nobody on the Zoom feed will be coming through? In which case, is that going to be true for our council member that's online right now?
That is my other concern.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, but is it going through on the will her audio go on to the YouTube feed? That's the question.
I think at this point we should probably just take the vote. It's been moved and seconded. So if the clerk will call the roll, we'll vote on it.
I'm
and
not.
decide.
I'm not prepared to vote yet until we hear an update here.
Okay. Do we want to wait 2
I
minutes?
mean, if we can wait a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Looks like he's about ready.
City manager's coming.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It does appear if we do take a break, we can reset the audio for any additional Zoom speakers, although I don't think we have any, but we can get that fixed.
All right. Does that change your perspective, Member Anderson?
The motion is just to end the study session here and then pick up again at 7. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Pick up with the regular meeting at 7.
Okay. I'm prepared to vote.
All right. With that, City Clerk?
Member Anderson,
I,
Member Noonan, Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Member Woodward.
Aye.
And
Thank you,
I don't
everybody.
believe Mayor Sarah is with us, so, yep.
We will resume our regular session at 7 p.m. Thank you. Members of council, we'll be resuming in 1 minute. Please take your seats. That is assuming, of course, we are ready to resume. Do you have an update for us? Thank you. We'll now call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes, good evening. Member Anderson,
Present.
Member Newnenkamp, Member Kolnick,
Present.
Member Russell,
Present.
Member Woodward,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Present. And I'll note now that the mayor is excused. He is traveling on business this evening. First order of business, consideration of minutes of the previous session. I will now entertain a motion regarding the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 council session.
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. City Clerk?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Newnenkamp, Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. Next order of business, we have a few proclamations this evening. The first of which is recognition of our Citizens Police Academy graduates. The Citizens Police Academy is the community's opportunity to learn about the Inglewood Police Department and the department's opportunity to create meaningful connections with the Inglewood community. In the academy, residents covered everything from traffic stops to crime scene investigations, SWAT responses, and police technology. It's an interactive, hands-on class and a great place to engage with officers and police staff. I can personally vouch for that. My wife and I are Citizen Academy graduates, lucky number 13. The Academy is a comprehensive in scope, and over 12 Wednesday nights, they covered many different areas of law enforcement operations, including crime scene and forensic science, code enforcement, overall criminal investigation, shooting simulator, it's fun, distracted driving, patrol procedures, SWAT overview, fire inspectors, traffic, and drugs. And with that, I believe we have Chief of Police Sam Watson and Community Relations Specialist Crystal Essman here to introduce our Citizens Police Academy graduates. If you would come forward when your name is called. At the end, we'll line everybody up, and the members of council and I will take a photo with all the graduates.
Thank you, Mayor. And first, thanks to all of you for recognizing the 2023 Citizens Academy group. It's their interest, the group that you're about to meet, their interest in the services the police department provides is a perfect example, wonderful example of dedicated citizens who support the community in many ways. It's a great group that comes together for 12 weeks to learn about different divisions and work groups of the police department and the varying laws within the city and the state. And it's a great opportunity for them to get to meet the department, the officers, the work group, and have that interaction. And not only do they get to learn from us, but we learn from them. So we engage them on police services, areas that, their expectations of us as far as the delivery of police services, and really hear from them on the on what they're looking for when they interact with the police. So it's a win-win for everybody. The overall partnership helps us provide that higher level of service to the community, and a large part is what makes the Inglewood great. So thank you for the time. And I'd like to introduce Crystal Essman, who's our Community Relations Crime Prevention Specialist and the facilitator for this group.
Thank you again for recognizing this wonderful group. Before I have the honor of calling them up individually, I just wanted to say that I am wholeheartedly thankful for all of the relationships that I make during this class. Their personal connections that are facilitated in this group between neighbors, patrol officers, and our city staff is just amazing, and that's one of my favorite parts of my job, and just building these connections and meeting these wonderful people. So without further ado, can I please call, or do you guys want?
Go ahead, you have the floor. Do you want
me
to call the
them
names?
up? Yeah.
And if members of council want to join me up front, we'll congratulate them as they come up.
In alphabetical order. Felicity Alfaro. Chris Balzano. And Zachary Cohen is not present. Angela Harpster. Stan Hotstedler. Lori Preen. Danielle Urban. He knows he's next. Farron Urban. And last but not least, Sarah Yurchik. Thank you all again. Now we have to smile for a picture.
Squeeze it a little more. Great. 1, 2, 3.
And we'll do this again next year, right, Crystal?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you coming out tonight. Next up, we have a couple of recognitions for the Finance Department. The first is for receiving the Government Financial Officers or Finance Officers Association's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 2023 budget. Try to say that 10 times fast. So I have some information here regarding this particular award. And let me see here. I'll just read the script. I think that would probably be the most succinct way to do this. Several groups at different levels of the city's operation provide input to the development of the annual capital and operational budgets. Council provides the policy and vision direction for city staff to put into action through various programs and service offerings that benefit the Inglewood community. The boards, commissions, and committees provide a citizen perspective which advises and informs council. The leadership team and department staff identify and seek council's consideration and authorization to fund programs and services for the Inglewood community based on conservative revenue estimates. Director Jackie Loh and other members of the Finance Department can come to the dais to receive your certificates. And I see they gave me talking points. The City of Inglewood, Colorado has received the Government Finance Officers Association's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for 2023. This is the 22nd time the city has received this award. Thank you, yes, I agree. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meeting the highest principles of government budgeting. In order to receive a budget award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. And I personally would like to take this moment to recognize the Finance Department and their contributions to this process. I have worked with the Finance Department in a variety of capacities, starting from my term on the Budget Advisory Committee back in 2014 for over 10 years now. And I have been continually impressed with the work being turned out by the Finance Department. So thank you. There is a second award for the Finance Department. I don't know if we want to do these both at the same time or if we want to recognize them separately. Separately. All right. Well, with that then, Director Loh, and I see Jenny up here, and Tyson. I will hand over your certificate momentarily. The rest of the council wants to do it. You have some comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ward. If I may, this small and mighty team cannot accomplish what for a 215 million budget. It's for 2024, including capital and operation. We have an army behind us. So in addition to these two staff members, I also want to take this opportunity to honor the city team. City manager's office, some of the staff members are here. I want them to join us for the recognition. City attorney's office, city clerk's office, and communications, economic development. I know Director Power is here. Municipal court, human resources, police department. I know Chief Watson is here. Public works.
Stand by, Director Loh. I'm sorry to interrupt. All right. Go ahead, please.
So there's a Director of Public Works and Deputy Directors Post and Thornton's here, and Utilities Department and South Platte Renew. So I just want to invite other staff members to join us to receive this.
We'll bring the rest of council up for this.
Yes. I'm not finished yet. Sorry, Parks and Rec Library involved, sorry. Okay. Last and least, we also want to thank council members and the boards, commissions, and committees members for your guidance, direction, and support every step along the way to help us achieve these desired outcomes. In 2 months, we're very excited to start this process again. Definitely we needed your continued support. We're asking you to ask questions, but we're also asking, more importantly, to select the best answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Loh. And now I think is the time for the photo. So we'll, members of council, please join me up front and we'll present the certificate to the Finance Department and the rest of the department directors who are here tonight.
Y'all stand in the back. Y'all stand right here. Can I take a picture? Can we take it with your phone? Well, yours is
probably actually better. I put it in 0.5 and then hold it up, but you're not tall enough. You can get to the side now.
Should we tell everybody that, or do you want to say it loud? Are you guys ready?
Thank you, everyone, and also thank you for your patience with these recognitions. The mayor's job, as it turns out, is not as enviable as I thought it would be. Our second award here is again for the Finance Department. They received a Certificate of Achievement for the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Each year, as a requirement, the city's accounting division produces an annual comprehensive financial report. The city received a National Certificate of Achievement for the annual report ending on December 31, 2021, from the Government Finance Officers Association. The GFOA established this program in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles and prepare an annual comprehensive financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, and to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. And I will say, there's some more things here. Each annual comprehensive financial report is reviewed using a checklist designed to determine compliance with both generally accepted accounting principles and program policy as established by the GFOA. Certificates are only awarded if there is consensus among reviewers that an annual comprehensive financial report substantially complies with both the generally acceptable accounting policies or principles and program policy. The 2021 Certificate of Achievement was the 39th consecutive year the city has received this award, and this award is recognized as the highest national standard for government financial reporting. I'll take this moment of indulgence and say that as someone who has spent more than my fair share of time with the city's budget, the annual comprehensive financial reports are very useful in comparing the city's current budget situation to projections for future years and looking at how various councils have allocated money previously. It's a wealth of information, and if you're curious about the city's finances, this is one of the great places to find that information. With that, Director Loh, you have more?
May I say a few things?
Absolutely.
Finance Manager Kevin Engels is out of office due to surgery. I wish he could be here, but he may be watching. And also the Accounting Supervisor Christine Hart cannot be here due to a family commitment. Just want to take the opportunity to honor them and their efforts day in and day out. I know many municipal local governments may receive the GFOA annual Comprehensive Financial Report Award, but what has set us apart is our report is as good as the illustration in a textbook. Let me share a letter I received from international publishing company Thomson Reuters. Director Loh, I'm one of the authors for the PPC Guide for Presentation Governmental Financial Statements, and I would like to use Inglewood's Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the year ended December 31st, 2020, as our illustrative governmental financial report in the 2021 edition of the guide. The reason I pick your report this year because of following reporting characteristics. First, achieve the GFOA ACFR award for last 37 years. Implemented GASB number 84. GASB stands for Government Accounting Standard Board. You have several types of fiduciary funds, including custodial funds. Third, your disclosure related to the impact of COVID-19. You have equity in joint venture. That means we have a joint venture with Littleton with South Platte Renew. Discretely presented component units. That means EVE, EMERV, and URA. We have to presented financials separately. Both single employer and agent multiple employer defined benefit contribution plan, as well as defined retirement plan for OPEB. OPEB means other pension, post-employment pension plan. We have very complicated pension plans. And also the level 2 input for FAR value measurements. That's how you present your investment measurement, like market value. So due to those reasons, our annual comprehensive financial report is in the textbook function. Last but not least, retail price for this guy is $495. I'm very glad to report our report is good enough for the textbook standard. So I just want to share this letter I received from the publisher with council and the citizen.
Thank you, Director Loh. That's actually news to me. Anytime our city gets national attention for something positive, it warms my heart. So thank you for that. Now we will pose for another photo with the Finance Department, I believe. So we'll assemble up front. Thank you. We have one final proclamation tonight. It is for Diabetes Month. And I will just read through this proclamation as is tradition. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate more than 37 million adults and children in the United States live with diabetes, and an estimated 96 million adults have prediabetes. And whereas diabetes impacts all social, economic, and ethnic backgrounds, and whereas uncontrolled diabetes puts people at risk for serious complications including cardiovascular disease, blindness, kidney disease and dialysis, and nerve damage and amputation. And whereas the American Diabetes Association estimates that the total cost of diabetes in the United States as $174 billion annually, with additional costs for gestational diabetes, prediabetes, and undiagnosed diabetes adding another $44 billion annually in costs. And whereas improving awareness about diabetes, including its prevention, detection, and treatment, can greatly improve the lives of all citizens while improving the lives of those affected by diabetes. And whereas learning how to self-manage this condition through diabetes self-management education is a cornerstone of treatment. And whereas the best practice guidelines to treat diabetes include, but are not limited to, insulin, oral medication, diet, physical activity, and daily self-management routines. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Othaniel Sierra, Mayor of the City of Inglewood, Colorado, and the City Council hereby proclaim National Diabetes Month during November 2023 in the City of Inglewood, and encourage all members of the community to recognize the impact of diabetes, the challenges faced by those experiencing diabetes, and the importance of early detection. That concludes the Diabetes Month proclamation. And yes, Jim.
I just want to say a couple things about diabetes. Having a son who is a type 1 diabetic, meaning that he receives insulin every day. He's on a pump, and if he doesn't get it, he basically dies. So this is a serious disease. Type 2 is a little different. Certainly people with type 2 diabetes aren't as insulin dependent, where they're either having shots or having it pumped into them, and can control it better through what they eat and different health type things, exercise, and what has been mentioned here. But my son or grandson, mother, biological mother, is a type 1 diabetic also, who is currently waiting on a kidney transplant and a spleen transplant on a list, and hopefully will make it until that transplant happens. So this is a serious one for me, and that's why I was asking for this, having been involved with American Diabetes Association and Barbara Davis Center for years. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodward. And we are on to scheduled public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address City Council. The expectation is the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. City Council may ask questions for clarification, but there is not any dialogue. Please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. We will cut you off at 5 minutes. And written materials for presentation to council may be presented to the city clerk. First up on the agenda, Jennifer White. As you've noticed, Ms. White, I have no control over the music or anything else happening in this room right now, so. I thought this was a part of the speech. If you would state your name and cross streets for the record and begin.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Jennifer White, District 4. It saddens me to stand here tonight addressing what I've talked so much about over the last several months. Leadership builds consensus through participation. They lead by example. They stop bullying when they see it, and they don't include themselves in rhetoric that may harm others. Over the last several weeks, I've seen so much of this happening. I felt the need to raise it as a true concern I have for everyone. I've lived here for just 3 years, and I've witnessed a lot of life-changing decisions made for our city. I've also seen 4 of our 7 council members up for recall, several referendums. I've attended meetings where people scream and yell. I have witnessed online bullying, including people in tears. I often wonder how the hell we've gotten here, why we can't work better together, and how I can help. And getting to know Stephanie Brooks, we found ourselves sharing a glass of wine, feeling the same way. We hosted a successful open house forum for the at-large candidates on Sunday, October 8th. The intention of this meeting was to lead by example and show that residents can work together regardless of their opinions and views, and help us all understand where the candidates stand on major topics the city is facing. We wanted to show that we can come together in a safe place and shake the hands of people that you may not be aligned with. Stephanie and I were taken back with the outpouring of appreciation for holding this meeting. We were encouraged to do many more. At the end, we looked at each other and thought, wow, we did it, and this is how we can help in the future. We knew after the feedback, we at minimum established trust that we could indeed run a safe, honest meeting with everyone in the city. Again, regardless of our stance or personal views. I call this out as it would be almost impossible to find an unbiased person in Englewood with everything going on and it being an election year. The only true way to find an unbiased person would be to find someone outside the city. As Stephanie and I were busy with work commitments, we were not able to get the ball rolling on preparing another meeting prior to the election. Good news is that there were others in the city that wanted to do this. They began reaching out to candidates in District 1 and 3. She then proposed an agenda to us that wasn't completely finalized and wanted feedback. We shared we wanted to set the same type of ground rules we set for the at-large candidates forum to start. We would like to give each candidate a bit more time to make their statements. We acknowledge that Stephanie lives in District 3, so I would ask the questions of the candidates in 3, and she would ask the questions of the candidates in 1. As I live in District 4, I was unable to vote for either, so we even tossed around me asking all questions and Stephanie managing the time. We wanted to be transparent and honest and would hold this meeting with the utmost respect for how important it is for our election. I was then forwarded emails. These emails were blasted on Nextdoor, Reddit, and Facebook. They were twisting and turning the facts and still being talked about to this day. The relentless assumptions that are being thrown out on social media to make us look like there was some hidden agenda was appalling and incorrect. When you want to take your opinion, skew the facts, and truly strive to make others believe what you think might happen, it's childish to say the least. Mr. Anderson said on one of the emails shared online, and I quote, "There are serious issues at play at this election, and we all have a responsibility to make sure all citizens, regardless of politics or stance, have a voice in shaping a meaningful debate," and I could not agree more. This is exactly what we were trying to do. When Mr. Anderson decided to bring his personal friend in, it went completely sideways. Per the emails that were shared, the spokesperson for you jumped in at your request. He then requested to bring in his own moderator. After hearing what he didn't want to, he began a campaign of bullying, intimidation, and harassment through his posts on social media. On his Facebook post, there was a gentleman that commented, and I quote, "I pray that the schemes these people are making will fall on their heads." And your spokesperson replied, "From your lips to God's ears, brother." So your personal friend you had join in thinks that we should fall on our heads, and that's okay with you. There were no schemes, no hidden agendas, or secret questions from us. To assume or imply that either of us would not be able to conduct a meeting with respect and dignity is disappointing. The crux of this isn't about a citizen sharing their thoughts or opinions online. Had this spokesperson not attacked us on social media and tried to actually work together in a civil way, we would not be speaking tonight. This is exactly what's creating the divide in our city, and it must stop. Any council members that were aware of this happening should have stepped in and said enough. Your silence condones this behavior. I am doing exactly what you've all asked me to do. I am engaged, I speak up, and I share my viewpoints. Just because our viewpoints don't align doesn't make us enemies. Residents should not be worried about speaking out on what they believe in fear their words would be twisted online or they would be faced with retaliation. The fact that this is still being discussed on social media is alarming. For those that don't have as thick a skin as us, this could be detrimental to them. You will now hear from two other speakers tonight sharing their different points of view on this issue as they have their own experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any questions for Ms. White? Next up, Stephanie Brooks. Ms. Brooks, if you would open with your name and address or cross streets. It's a good question. Who did council response to public comment last time? Was it Member Kolnick? Then it must be me. Rita. Member Russell. Sorry. ABCs. It's a lot of complicated stuff going on right now. It'll be Member Russell. Thank you for asking that question.
Stephanie Brooks, District 3. Unfortunately, tonight I'm here to talk about cyberbullying and the with us or against us scorched earth politics that has infected our great little city. Mr. Anderson is my representative, and while we don't agree on everything, I do believe that we have a cordial relationship, and while we may disagree on some things, we can still remain respectful, and I thank you for that. And yes, I did support the recall, which is my right as a citizen to redress my government without fear of reprisal, but that process is over. Now all I want is for the city to move on to find solutions. As Jen mentioned, we hosted the at-large forum because we wanted to model respectful dialogue and listen to residents' concerns. In a September 21 Herald article, several council members spoke to this with a theme of listening, increasing communications, and reducing the us versus them discourse. And most recently, Mr. Anderson said in the Winter 23 City Magazine, if we continue to know and serve our neighbors, especially those who are unlike us, those we disagree with, then we will have a strong and thriving community. I absolutely agree. The only reason I'm speaking tonight is because I was a target of online harassment in a campaign conducted with the knowledge of council members who have remained silent on this behavior. On October 25th, I was preparing for a road trip and was not online. That same afternoon, Mr. Anderson sent an email from his tax-funded email account calling out how I voted in the recall and directing me to work with someone on details of a campaign-related debate. Two things I want to highlight from this email is, quote, how important it is for us to demonstrate healing to the community, and to please work with a redacted person, which inferred that this was the council member's spokesperson. During a stop on my road trip, I responded from my phone, clarifying that I wasn't the organizer, and stating our intent to moderate in the same respectful manner that we had done at the at-large forum. And I thought that was the end of it. However, a few days prior, the council member spokesperson posted on social media disparaging us and the organizers. I'd like to point out some of that language. We tried to negotiate for the fair open debate. We tried. He called us hostile moderators with secret questions only known to the aforesaid hostile moderators, and then posted screenshots on Reddit of correspondence that supported this narrative. All of this because we disagreed on something? After I got to a computer, I found an email from this spokesperson complimenting me on the at-large forum, but it contains several false assumptions. I attempted to correct misunderstandings in a response that included Mr. Anderson and Mr. Sierra. However, this did not have the intended effect, and the spokesperson continued to harass Jen and me on social media with the knowledge of council members. Since communications between taxpayer email accounts were used against me, a private citizen, I am coming forward. It's disappointing that the city would stay silent when council members' use of taxpayer resources enabled online bullying. In my response,
If you thought I was going to fall over with embarrassment from saying a dirty word, you've probably got me pegged for the wrong kind of pastor.
So we'll stop it there. But let's talk about
To love others means
what's actually going on in the city right now. The video clips that I presented echo the problems that we are discussing this evening. One of the issues that occurred that precipitated all of this was the email that my wife sent out to actually set up the debate that we were going to hold for District 1 and District 3 that went sideways. As a result of this, a representative of both Mr. Sierra and Mr. Anderson began doxing my wife on social media. This led to the cyberbullying that we've already discussed this evening. When candidates do not get their way, their third-party representative doxed the organizers on Nextdoor, Facebook, and Reddit. Then one of the candidates sent a demand email to a moderator to do something about it using his official city email address, not as a candidate, but as an elected official. When the candidates didn't get an immediate response to do something from the moderator, their third-party representative made up a story about not getting a fair deal. It's clear that both Joe Anderson and Nathaniel Sierra are using tactics of cyberbullying, harassment, and intimidation by not only silently standing by while a representative uses fear tactics in making these controversial conversations public, but also sending emails of intimidation directly to the moderators. Stephanie has already pointed out that there is a law against this. As the incumbents, you had the advantage to come in and demonstrate that you are willing to work with people you don't agree with. Doing that would say more about your character than what has transpired. If you didn't want to participate, we would have not said a word. But when you blasted on social media, you made it public, and we have the right to respond. We are all citizens of Inglewood. We are all your constituents. Why can't we work together? It's been almost 20 years since Columbine. We should no longer have cyberbullying in our presence.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Mr. Jones? That brings us to our next speaker, C. Ann Dickerson.
Nothing's going across.
We've heard reports that the YouTube feed dropped. I've been informed that it has come back on. So, Ms. Dickerson, if you would open with your name and cross streets.
CN Dickerson, District 1. I agree with everything that's been said prior. Laws, the founder said, should be few, simple, easy to understand, and ensure the maximum liberty so that we all want to obey them. We have a right to our property and a property in our rights. Our municipal code is inconsistent, contradictory, and in many respects unconstitutional, clearly violating our rights, especially our property rights. And council policy is not congruent with code, especially in the attitude towards citizens addressing council. You clearly don't know code or remember what bills you sponsored and passed. In 2021, Joe Anderson sponsored a change to Title 1-5-2-9 Addressing Council, allowing speakers to give cross streets instead of exact addresses. Yet you interrupted my testimony demanding I give an exact address a couple of meetings ago. Making points of order and/or personal privilege and threatening removal to shut down a speaker is extremely unethical and inappropriate. So is slandering and accusing a citizen for the content of his or her speech. And it is also changing arbitrarily the location and time of council meetings and using the guise of special meeting label to prevent public comment as you did on 9/25. Then there are all the charter amendments which restrict even further our rights to recall and referendum. Even though after attacking the judge, you quietly had dropped your attempt to control the court, Your behavior in this matter of charter amendments proves your incompetence and your desire to ignore citizens and control them. The response to public comment on 1018 was inaccurate at best, at least to my comments about biogas and Title 12 revisions, and reveals your intent to disparage citizens and violate their property rights. Recent changes to Title 12 utilities, which who owns what, who's responsible for what, are inherently contradictory and attempting to give warrantless entry to our private property. We don't know that the city transmission pipes have been cleared of lead. So until that is proven to be clean of lead to all service lines, this is wasteful to put this on to citizens. It's also a bit unconstitutional. One thing that would make a lot more sense would be to do lead testing. It'd certainly be cheaper and more effective if we could get a read on our lead, if there's any lead in our water. It only takes a carbon filtration to prevent lead in your drinking water. I have it. There's no lead in my house. And I don't know if lead is in my service lines because I don't know what the city has done. Regarding the biogas project, one of the selling points was it would only take 4 years to repay the investment. By the end of the third year, which was 2022, it was not even halfway repaid. It won't be repaid by December 31st, 2023, so it can't be paid early, as was said. Despite efforts to obscure the facts and the failure to produce a generally accepted accounting principle income statement, nothing, not even participation awards, justifies any claim about the biogas project being a rousing success. It is essentially a failure. Tomorrow is the election. If 2 of the council majority should keep their seats, then maybe Member Neunenkamp was correct when she said we citizens are not competent or qualified to elect our judge. If we are not qualified to elect our judge, we are certainly not qualified to elect you to make any decisions for us, including electing our judge. However it turns out, I and many others will be holding the seated council accountable for all the bad ordinances and behaviors of this council, especially the 2 we wanted to recall.
Any questions for Ms. Dickerson? Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. The last scheduled public comment is from Sheila Singer. Ms. Singer, if you would please open with your name and address or cross streets.
My name is Sheila Singer. I'm at Julian and Tufts. Once again, you can insert eye roll here. So once again, I find myself standing before you, rather befuddled and embarrassed for you and by you. Imagine, if you will, a city council meeting in February of 2018, I believe. 2 very wise women on that council stated something to the effect that, as members of council, we put ourselves out there and we expect to face the ire of citizens, and we need to have a thick skin because everyone's voice and opinion matters. Our city manager can take care of himself, and we don't need to defend him. But when it comes to citizens verbally attacking one another, that's uncalled for and it won't be tolerated. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist. It would appear that citizens attacking other citizens is perfectly okay now, and in fact, is even endorsed or blindly ignored by members of this council. So on behalf of the people sitting here tonight, the citizens of Inglewood, I'll do what you won't. To Stephanie, to Jen, to Miss Donna, I apologize. that you were bullied. Schoolyard bullies have no place sitting up there. That being said, Mr. City Manager, I find it very interesting that you decided all of a sudden it was very important to lay out what is appropriate behavior for a city council meeting. I would think that you have better things to do with your time. And let me point out, applause is a form of communication. It's not disruptive. It always ends prior to the next speaker taking the podium. Not to mention, for those in the deaf community, this form of applause is a form of communication, and you don't get to silence anyone. Councilmember Anderson, I have a couple of questions for you. Are you a goldfish in disguise? Why, you ask? Because you flip-flop on things more than anyone I've ever met. Just like a fish out of water, flip-flopping on your back. I'm pretty sure it's on record that it says you like the props. Now all of a sudden you don't? Is it because you got a cup that says the preacher and the F-bomb? Well, you dropped the F-bomb, not me. You choose to forget that you were wearing your city council hat that night and not that of a pastor. Is it because you got a bottle of wine whose label said the Velvet Devil? Is it because you got multiple payday candy bars, implying that your interests take precedence over those of the citizens? So now we're calling my props gifts that violate campaign finance rules? Well, tell that to the Supreme Court. If you are that worried about it, I have a tally for each of you in regards to what you were given. After all, some of you got more paydays than others. I accept cash. No checks, please. And Councilmember Anderson, I'd like to remind you that when you sit up on that dais, you're a council member. Your pastorship should not come into play. That being said, there are far too many of you that allow your religious views to color your votes. You particularly, Ms. Noonan-Camp, are a member of Sacred Grace Church, which in and of itself is not a bad thing. Worship who and where you want. The problem comes when your church has part of its mission statement to influence government. Hello? Have I been under a rock? Or does the 14th Amendment regarding the separation of church and state no longer exist? I would also like to point out that the dais upon which you sit does not make you better than me or anyone else in this room or anyone else in this city for that matter. The last time I spoke, Ms. Noonan-Camp, you were responsible for the council's response. I was completely offended and taken aback by your response. You treated myself and Ms. Bailey like children. Quite frankly, you were nothing more than a bully, which seems to be par for the course for most of the members on this council. Please know the results of the recall were not a victory for any of you. Ms. Noonan-Camp, you have your seat by 29 votes. Mr. Anderson and Mr. Sierra, 40% is not a win. You have the seats because the city did a great job in confusing voters. As I close, please note, Mr. Woodward, I say thank you. Thank you for being brave.
Ms. Singer, that's your time. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Singer? Seeing none, we will move on now to unscheduled public comment. Same rules apply, except at unscheduled public comment, you get 3 minutes. Mr. Cohn, you are first up.
Good evening. I live near Marion and Dartmouth. I'm going to talk about two things tonight. You're going to vote on the museum amendment, and part of the amendment is extending our opening until April 1st, and the other part is approving a grant to allow us to transform the Museum of Outdoor Arts into a spectacular history museum. You guys said yes to a museum in September, and this step is so exciting to me. We've been working on it for 12 years. If you say yes, well, I don't know if you know the Calacney Music Store over on Broadway. Those guys donated 10 big showcases for the museum. and Jester already has donated the history of the Inglewood High School Marching Band. The three groups that share the space, we have an agreement. The insurance is in place. Our first planned large exhibit is the history of Cinderella City. And this building will be part of that story. Please vote yes tonight on that amendment. Do I have any idea how much time I have left?
Yes, 1:30.
Okay. I want to share with you a speech. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met here in the great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of it as a final resting place for those who gave their lives so that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far more than our poor power to add and detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work that they started, for us to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that these honored dead, we take the increased devotion to that cause which they gave the last full measure of devotion. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation...
I'm sorry, Mr. Cohen, that is your time, your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Can I ask how much is left?
One sentence.
Can you finish the sentence, please?
Sure.
That this nation shall have a birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you,
Abraham
Mr.
Lincoln.
Cohen. Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Seeing none, next up is Kevin Wright.
Kevin Wright, District 4. I won't give my address, just like Mr. Jones pointed out. I don't know who's stalking us. I would like to address the fact that you guys are going to build our neighborhoods up and add more densification into our neighborhoods, but I haven't heard anything about security. I haven't heard anything about widening our sidewalks or adding any type of lighting to our streets to make us safe. I want my people to be safe walking down the street. Yet you guys seem to just want to slap houses up and do what you want in our town and city with no consideration of security for our people. I haven't heard anybody up there talk about this, and I don't understand why. So, my wife was upstairs the other day and she ran across a bunch of propaganda sitting upstairs. Emergency management. I didn't hear a word from Inglewood at all during the 2020 COVID. You guys didn't even send me a mask. How nice. Propaganda. Then and now, civic engagement. It's not working. I never received a blue book. I don't even get the Inglewood magazine anymore. We asked to have it addressed and sent to us. It's not happening anymore. Propaganda. Crime and policing. You have on here, you hired 6 new officers. You threw the other administration under the bus. Like you guys are these heroes since 2018 to 2023. And you threw the other administration under the bus. And I can't believe it. Well, actually, I can't. Excuse me for that. I'm seeing here there were 78 officers in 2021 and 84 in 2023. But you failed to put on here that you hired 6 and 6 retired. Propaganda. Homelessness then and now. The same occurs here. 2017, what happened to the other administration? You guys got on here 2018, nothing was done. 2023, you took care of it all. You know, the only thing I see different is I don't see people on the Platte River sleeping alongside the river anymore. They're sleeping on Broadway. Propaganda. Then and now, water and sewer. This is one thing I can give you guys. Thank you. You lined my sewer pipe. You put in new valves. This really upsets me right here. This is stormwater infrastructure and flood prevention. 2018 long-term plan, funding in place for needed improvements. I haven't seen anything done except for what you did over here at the hospital to accommodate those developers. Till a girl died in her apartment, nothing was done. 63,500 pounds, 31 tons of debris was removed from our storm sewers. How come? Would it have been taken care of if she didn't die? I doubt it.
Mr. Wright, thank you, that's your time. Any questions for Mr. Wright? Seeing none, next up, Kim Wright.
Good evening, Kim Wright, District 4. Before I say anything, we had to inform the city that the audio and video wasn't working. During that time, most of Stephanie Brooks and most of Mike Jones' time was missed for those at home. I think that they need to be able to come back up and do their presentations again, because those at home were not able to hear or see what they had presented, and that's not fair, and I'm getting a lot of texts about that. Previously, people have said, I believe it was Jan Wypert has said, people at home need a phone number or a text number where when the audio or the video go down, they should be able to have a number that they could get a hold of someone at the city and say, hey, we have a problem, so it could get fixed real quickly. Maybe that needs to be addressed again so that they don't have to text or try and call one of us, because our phone's on vibrate or silent in the future. All right. I don't know. I need to ask, have I been put on the naughty list? The winter edition of the Inglewood magazine has been put out, and I used to be on a list that Mayor Pro Tem put us on, that it was sent to us, and we're not even getting it yet. My entire area has not received the Inglewood magazine. I've addressed over and over again that my area is underserved in a lot of ways, and we don't get the magazine. We didn't get the Inglewood election book. I went and hand delivered them. Thank you, Sean, for that box of them. And it's, unless things are specifically addressed to us, we don't get them in our area. I believe there's another area in our city that doesn't get them. This is a big issue. Unless the city wants us to receive them, we don't get something. This needs to be looked at. I'm sick of coming up here continuously on this matter. Another issue. There are things going on this evening, like the council, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Things that you're going to be discussing and voting on this evening. It's the night before election. It shouldn't be done. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what it's called, but how a council meeting should be run and that type of thing. I don't think it should be done on the night before election when a new council is going to be seated. We know that 2 people definitely are going to be replaced, possibly more. So I think that this needs to wait until the new council is seated. If you don't listen to anything,
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. That's your
two people
time.
need to be able to be reheard.
That's your time. Any questions for Mrs. Wright? Seeing none, we have one online.
We have Matt Crabtree and then one online. Sorry.
Mr. Crabtree.
Hi, good evening, Matt. Oh, can you hear me? There we go. Hi, good evening. My name is Matt Crabtree. I live at Sherman and Cornell. I actually had showed up a little late tonight, so I didn't get a chance to get on the list, but I wanted to continue the point of the presentation from Doug. We, as the Historic Englewood, appreciate the opportunity to vote tonight on an amendment to the contract that for the Englewood Museum. This provides the opportunity a little bit more time. It took a little bit longer than expected to get the insurance going and the funding going. So tonight would be, well, we're very grateful for the grant opportunity that's being discussed tonight and appreciate a yes vote on that. And then the second part of it is, well, this Saturday is Veterans Day. That's where Doug, I think, was going with his presentation. So I just wanted to, Doug and I talked a little bit ahead of time, so I just wanted to kind of clarify that important weekend, actually cool history there. Veterans Day, once called Armistice Day, was the last day of World War I. Years later, I think it was 1926, that it was actually considered Veterans Day and considered an official holiday. And it's an important day, so hope everybody, I guess, a little bit late for Proclamation tonight, but it'd be good to recognize, obviously, Veterans Day this weekend. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. Who's online?
I've asked them to unmute. It's Duran Chime. If you're online and you're wishing to speak, if you could just unmute yourself. Okay. They may just be online listening.
Okay, not hearing any anything from our online commenter. We will move on to council response to public comment, which I believe we said Member Russell has this evening. Member Russell.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And it is a great reminder that it is your constitutional right to redress your council members with any grievance that you have. And you should be able to do that without fear of retribution. And I personally would like to apologize to Stephanie Brooks, to Jen White, and to Donna Jones for what you have suffered because of the cybersecurity. That is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that anybody in a position of leadership would tolerate that. And this has been a great reminder this evening, the great division that is existing in this city right now. And you can feel it all over. I mean, I've felt it during the campaign. Unfortunately, I believe that division really has been created by council ourselves. And I apologize for that. And we need to do a better job of helping you out. I do want to thank you, Stephanie and Jen, for the amazing candidate forum that you presented. It was one of the best candidate forums I have ever attended. And there was mutual agreement. People got along. There was no negativity at all. And you absolutely do have a right to your opinions. And you should not have been attacked for that. That was totally wrong. And cyberbullying, we do need to address that. It is not okay, because I do believe not only in the election cycle, but even before the election cycle, next door, I have not done next door since I got on council because of the negativity that's promoted there. And so we need to address that. Mike, thank you for coming out and speaking out and for the reminder and the video clips. I greatly appreciate that. Coeen, or Cian, I apologize. I always appreciate your reminders of the laws needing to be kept simple. And thank you that you are going to continue to hold us accountable, that this election will change nothing. We will all still be well, whoever is up here is going to be accountable to the public. Also, I do have a council request for one of the things that Ms. Dickerson brought up. Has the lead been tested in the service lines as of yet? So, I mean, because I'm assuming when it leaves the plant, there's not a problem, but is there a problem in the service line? So if we could test that, that would be great. Sheila, thank you for coming. I always appreciate your thoughts, and you all have been a blessing to me, and just have helped me through this. Doug, thank you. I always love the historic reminders, and I appreciate you reading part of, I believe it was the Gettysburg Address, and I kind of feel like perhaps we're in that point in our city even, and the division that's been created, and so we need to move forward and bring unity. Kevin, I appreciate you coming forward. I appreciate your insight. I believe that you are sharing what a lot of people feel. I have heard a lot from individuals in the city about the communications that have gone out, and I do believe there is some concern about that. I also do appreciate you bringing up the safety and the sidewalks, things that keep us safe in the city. Those things are important. It's not just moving forward with density. Now that Code Next has been passed, we need to address these issues before we move forward with any of the building or any of the increased density. And Kim, I do appreciate your reminder. And actually, I did not know. I mean, I turn my phone off. So if people would text me during a council meeting, I don't pay attention to that. And I do believe you're right. And so I would like to put a council request in. Is it possible that citizens could have a city phone number to call when the audio or video is not working? Matt, thank you for coming up to speak about the extra time and the grant money, and Doug also, and also for the reminder that Saturday is Veterans Day. I greatly appreciate all of you. If it weren't for you, there's no purpose for us to be up here. So please do not stop coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I just want to address Ms. Brooks and Ms. White. I want to say I think you guys did a fantastic job on putting together that at-large forum. And I'm really optimistic that, moving forward, we got an election coming up in 2 years. You guys could have a great role in putting together more forums in the future. I do think it's important that we have conversations, we don't cut off the conversation, and that transparency in that whole process is really important. But I would be happy to sit down and talk about how we can do it differently next time and come to a mutual agreement for how to move forward. And I think there's a real good possibility of doing that. I don't hold anything against you guys, and I'm excited to work with you both in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Anderson. And with that, unless anybody needs a break, we will move on to the consent agenda. Yes, Member Nunenkamp, I'm sorry, I forgot to look up. There you are. Please go ahead. Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp, and you've reminded me, just for the purpose of the record, the current magazine has not arrived at the Ward household either. So I don't know if it's delayed or if it's just in process. Member Russell.
Actually, Councilmember Noonan-Camp's question prompted another question that I would like to do. I would, the post office invoices through Form 3602 for mailings. And so I would like for council to get a copy of the 3602 invoice for the election issue and also for the Code Next advertisement that came out. If we could get those two forms that the post office sends for billing, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Anyone else? Are we ready to move to the consent agenda? We are moving to the consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda? Member Russell.
Actually, I would like to pull 9A1 and 9A2.
All right, Member Russell, 9A1 and 9A2. That leaves one item on the consent agenda, which is 9C1. I will now entertain a motion for approval of agenda item 9C1.
I'll move 9C1.
Moved by Member Woodward, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Anderson. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp? Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Moving on to agenda item 9A1. This is Council Bill 47, amending the Inglewood Municipal Code to establish clear authority for the city's current fees for usage of city property, facilities, and services. Staff source is Attorney Niles.
Thank you. We don't have a PowerPoint for this one because we thought it was going to be on the consent agenda. But this ordinance does a couple of things. First, it cleans up the language in our ordinance section or code section regarding fees for use of parks. A lot of our code sections are very wordy, and I find that I can say the same thing in about 10 words that municipal code will say in 30 or 50 words. So that's what the majority of those changes are, cross-throughs, just removing things that are unnecessary words that have the same meaning. But the new substantive section is a new subsection C that clearly states city council shall set fees for the usage of city properties. We already have fees for the use of city properties, such as greens fees for the Parks Department or class fees at the Recreation Center. We already have those, and city council did already approve those within the fee schedule that we approve every year. But my office took about a year, and we analyzed every single line item on the fee schedule, and we compared it to every single fee charged by the city because we wanted to make sure there was clear authority within our municipal code that authorized us to impose those fees. So this is an ordinance arising out of that project where we say we would like code to be just a little bit clearer that specifically says the city council can set fees for use of city facilities by an individual.
So my question is, this is partly because we have contracted out with eArts to rent out the building. And so could those fees set, I mean, this is a public building. Should those fees be set by the city? Are they set by the city? And how would that whole arrangement be impacted?
So this municipal code section actually doesn't impact that at all. This code section says municipal code can set fees to use facilities. We say city-owned structures, parks, and recreation facilities, or any parts thereof. So the fee to use or to reserve a park structure for a party, something like that. City council does approve leases, and the amounts we charge are leases, like for eArts, but we do that via the lease that city council approves separately.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Member Russell?
Actually, is this going to change? A lot of times we will have fees come up at different times during the year. So this won't happen. They'll all come up at the same time. Is that correct, or?
Not necessarily. City council will set the fees, but let's say, just a completely hypothetical, let's say we build a new park structure that's so fantastic that we want a special fee to rent it. If somebody wants to, maybe city council wants to set a fee of $200 to rent this particular structure per hour, then we would bring that to city council as a supplement to add to the fee schedule if it's not already in there.
Okay, and then are there like any codes connected with the fees? Like, let's say for instance, a park pavilion. And so those are under park guidelines. So what happens if an individual didn't reserve the pavilion, but they showed up and there was nobody there using it? Is it okay for the citizens in the area that use the park to use that pavilion?
Well, this ordinance doesn't speak to that. We have park rules. But I can tell you my understanding with the caveat, I've never done that personally, nor have I ever been consulted on this happening. But it is my understanding if it's not already reserved, anyone can use it. Now that said, you wouldn't have exclusive use. Somebody else showed up and wanted to use it too, and you didn't reserve it. They can set up their party next door to yours. But the only way you can guarantee exclusive use is to reserve it and pay for it.
Okay, all right. That answers my questions. Thank you.
If there are no additional questions, I will entertain a motion on agenda item 9A1.
I move to approve 9A1.
Thank you, Member Russell. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Member Woodward. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp? Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. The next agenda item, 9A2, amending the Inglewood Municipal Code to provide consistency in council fee setting mechanisms. Staff source, Attorney Niles.
Would you like me to give some background, or instead would you like for me to just answer Councilmember Russell's questions? Happy to do either one.
The latter. We'll give the floor to Councilmember Russell.
Okay, and I don't know that this applies, but I'm just curious. How would these changes to the Muni Code perhaps affect a person's right to due process?
It doesn't affect the right to due process at all. This is another outcome from our internal fee schedule project, where we determined that municipal code was inconsistent regarding how we set fees. There were some provisions that required ordinance, some that required resolution, some that didn't speak to it at all, which is why we just brought the ordinance immediately prior to this one. So we were looking for consistency, and that would clearly allow City Council by one legislative act per year to set these fees. So we're trying to make it consistent. So it doesn't affect due process at all.
So are these two ordinances really tied together, or the?
They are, and we just consider them cleanup ordinances, which is why we recommended consent agenda for them.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve 9A2.
Thank you, Member Russell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp? Member Kolnick?
Aye.
Member Russell?
Aye.
Member Woodward?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward?
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on, there are no public hearing items tonight. We have one resolution to address. Agenda item 11C1 regarding council policy updates. Staff source on this, once again, Attorney Niles.
Thank you. This actually isn't a resolution item, it's just a motion approval, I believe.
Thank you.
Of course, we occasionally propose amendments and consider amendments to our council policies, which provide a beginning to end guide for city council meetings and conduct for some city staff and city council members. And we presented on some proposed updates back in August. And we had been waiting because we had discussed in August whether or not we should discontinue the practice of using USBs. We have unsecured USBs that people bring during public comment that we then try to install and get them up and running during public comment. That research is still ongoing, so I have completely removed that for the time being so we can do a thorough analysis of potential security risks and so that City Council can have a full picture on that. But we wanted to go ahead and bring everything else that we discussed in August. And I have described the proposed changes from what we presented in August on the council communication. And those are, just because I don't have a PowerPoint, I will go ahead and list those during this time so that the public knows exactly what they are. It also, let's see, Councilmember Russell on August 7th proposed that constituent mailings be paid out of discretionary funds rather than general city council postage. And that received general approval during the study session, so we did input that into the proposed policies. Mayor Pro Tem Ward requested that we revise removal from public meetings only for conduct that's repeated, because sometimes conduct is egregious enough that it may warrant immediate removal. So we remove the if repeated for conduct that may warrant removal from a public meeting. And just so you know, we've never removed anyone since June 21 when I became the city attorney. So I don't anticipate this would be an issue, but rather have the rules in place in case something unexpected should arise. Mayor Pro Tem Ward also discussed on August 7th that annual evaluations of the city manager and city attorney, the policies reflected they would happen once a year. And we discussed maybe there is a need to do it more than once a year. So we referenced that it's possible to have more than a single annual evaluation. Then Mayor Sierra requested an addition to provide that the time clock during public comment starts when the speaker reaches the podium. So sometimes there's people are shuffling and it can take some time, and so to make it clear when the clock starts, it would be a set time for every person. The time starts when somebody is standing where I am right now. Then the proposals that we discussed on August 7th that did not change are listed, and they were all pretty much clean up. There was nothing controversial about them in our presentation for August 7th. We just had a general discussion and general consensus approval. So I would welcome your questions, and again, this would just be a motion and a voice vote to approve.
Member Russell.
Thank you, and I thank you for the presentation. I do have an issue with the time clock allocated to speak shall start when the speaker reaches the podium. Sometimes they do need to get settled, and the clerk generally turns the timer on the minute they've given their name and their district. So I think that's working. I think that's working fine.
Member Woodward.
I am in agreement with that. I've noticed the same thing tonight. There were times when the speaker was up there and the timer wasn't on and the person wasn't ready to speak. So, or if somebody's putting in a US 10B into the computer or something like that. So I think there's something else, some other way to say that when the speaker is ready or something like that, but not when they get there. Possibly when the mic comes on.
Thank you, Member Woodward. Any other questions? Member Russell.
Also this is on page 11 of 25. It is under manner of addressing the city council and time limit. It is H. In order to ensure that city council meetings are conducted democratically and effectively, and so that city council and all members of the public have a full, fair, and equal opportunity to be heard, no person shall boo, clap, yell, speak off mic, or speak in response to or during a speaker's comments. Some of those are etiquette, and I'm not sure, maybe once in the entire 8 years I've been on council, have I heard anyone boo. I think it is inappropriate and out of order for people to yell. I mean, but for people to clap, like tonight, the clapping was respectful. And one of the public speakers was saying it is a means of communication and showing support. So I would like to not have it so, there are things that I agree with. Not to speak off mic, that has to do with etiquette during a meeting.
We're kind of bleeding out of questions at this point, and into comments. I do have a question related to that. I know that we've talked about this from time to time. There's a First Amendment question at work here. I had a brief discussion with some staff members before this meeting tonight, which is why you did not hear me address applause, as chair of the meeting this evening. The question I have for you is legal in nature, and that is, I know at the state capitol, applause are prohibited, period. End of discussion. So as I think about that legal standard, I have to believe that it's not just that they're doing something illegal and they've never been challenged on it. There must be some sort of legal standard at work that allows them to have such a policy. And so I guess that's my question for you is, generally from a 10,000 foot view, what is our potential liability here relative to addressing and maintaining decorum, and where does the line exist between the First Amendment exercise and the business of the people that occurs in the council chambers?
So the purpose of a city council meeting is for city council to conduct business. That means no one has a right to speak during a city council meeting unless and until city council gives them the right to do so. Now, we do have some provisions regarding quasi-judicial public hearings and that people have a right to speak then. Otherwise, no one has a right to speak at all or otherwise interrupt the city council in the conducting of its business unless city council allows it. So, for example, we don't have to require any public comment. The First Amendment doesn't require that because no person has a First Amendment right to speak during a city council meeting. It just doesn't apply here. Now, when city council then does allow public comment, then First Amendment protections do apply. For example, we can't regulate content. If we open it up for public comment, then they do have a First Amendment right to say what they want. However, unless and until they are recognized by the chair or otherwise authorized by city council, no one can interrupt the city council meeting unless and until they are recognized by the chair. Which means you can have a zero tolerance policy for anybody clapping, speaking, any conduct at all that could at all interrupt city council. You have the authority to prohibit it, but you also have the authority to allow it. If city council does choose to allow that, then you can do that too, but you have no obligation to do so.
Follow-up question, what do you see other municipalities in the region doing?
Actually, I just attended a seminar from nationwide city attorneys on public meetings, and I can tell you there are cities dealing with far louder and more assertive interruptions than some clapping after somebody gives public comment. My last city had a zero tolerance, and we generally didn't allow it, and people didn't try because they knew it just wasn't allowed. But we were a small town in Kansas, so everyone knew each other and their grandparents. So I think it's probably largely up to the mayor and up to the city council as to what they allow. And if it does become more of an interruption and interferes with city council conducting city business, I imagine the tolerance for it gets smaller.
Member Russell, question for you. Are you proposing to strike this rule in its entirety, or would you just like to table any potential changes until after the new council is sworn in?
I think I would just like to table it after the new council is sworn in. I'm not blanket saying that we shouldn't. I mean, I do believe there are rules. We are here to conduct business, and so we can't have people speaking out of turn unless they're recognized by the mayor. But I'm thinking perhaps we could table this one until the new council is seated.
Yeah, my perspective on this, just to be frank, is that I think we could get, I mean, there are a number of things at work here. One of the things is, depending on how strongly we decide to enforce this policy, if it still exists, we are involving our police department in a matter which may put them in an unfortunate position. And for that reason, to discuss some of that legal nuance, I think it would be beneficial for us to have an executive session specific to potentially this particular policy involving potential removal from council sessions or what penalties or how we intend to enforce decorum rules in council sessions before we make additional changes. That being said, we don't have the agenda item up yet, so perhaps now would be a good time for us to introduce a motion to pass this motion.
Your Honor.
Yes, Jim.
I would like to get some questions in before we.
Go ahead, please.
Because I may not be here for that meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, on page 4 of 25, item number 2, AC, election procedure. That second sentence, generally such election shall take place at the second meeting in November after such general municipal election or following an action to remove the mayor. For the first time, to my knowledge, this year may be a year when it could be as late as the 4th of December.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was 2005 when there was a district council race that was so close, they weren't sure they were going to have an answer by the second meeting because the votes were, military was still coming and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if we can change that wording, remove the second meeting and put something to the effect that at the seating of the new council.
Yes, I would certainly support that. This is existing language that we didn't propose a change to. As you can tell, we did a markup version so you could see what's new, and it's in blue and underline or cross through if we propose to delete it.
Mine's in black and white.
I'm sorry?
Mine's in black and white.
Well, the new ones
There's
are.
no blues in my pages, so.
Oh, if you had the print in, we don't print in color.
No.
So that's,
Yeah.
so that's Councilmember Russell, the one you raised too, was not language that we had proposed an amendment to. But we do, of course, have a charter change that says council members now don't take office until the election results are certified. And it appears that that will happen so that they are sworn in December 4th. So I definitely support that proposal that we say it should take place upon swearing in of new council members after the election or something like that.
Okay, and then I have a question for you. With other cities, have you found there to be time limits as opposed of public comment? And if there are time limits, then how do they handle people that still haven't spoke that would like to speak?
So actually, I just attended a conference of all city attorneys across the nation, and we were talking about different public comment policies. And it was we had some of the most liberal policies. And they had us all raise our hands and then take them down. And it was me and about 10 other people in a room of about 400 city attorneys that still had their hand up at the end. Because other cities require you to be citizens. They require a maximum of perhaps 1 hour. They sometimes only allow public comment on things that are on the agenda. Some cities limit public comment to 2 minutes total. Of course, we have 5 if you sign up ahead of time, which was the most time anybody in that room allowed. And so we have very, very liberal public comment policies. Some city attorneys said they limit the max to 30 minutes or an hour because that way city staff knows when they start. I've seen a couple of different ways. At first come, first serve, when the hour is up. Everybody else, you're put on the agenda for public comment next time. We have also discussed internally that some cities will do an hour of public comment, and then anything after that, you can give your public comment at the end. My last city used to have regular town halls that were just public comment. And city council, it was just come up and you have your X amount of time, and the whole meeting was just listening to public comment. So we do have very liberal policies, which I do think encourages citizen participation, but sometimes it means you have a room full of department heads then waiting to present.
Exactly. You have staff sitting here that are going to be at work at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Or earlier, some of them.
Yeah, or earlier. No, I agree. And I would encourage council to look at that and really think about that. I don't know if I'll be here for that meeting of this discussion, but I think, again, in the past, 1 hour, we cut it off, and then we picked it up at the end of the meeting, the balance of the public comment. And this is a good example. We had people here for public comment. They're not here for the business meeting of the city. This is what that meeting is about, is the business meeting of the city. And I have heard from them in the past when we've taken a break, asked them, why aren't you going to stay for the business meeting of the city? Oh, I'm going to go home and watch it on YouTube. I don't know if they go home and watch it on YouTube, but I'm suspect of that kind of comment personally. So thank you. That's my opinion.
Additional questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve 11C1.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Is there a second? I will second. Discussion.
So what was the motion? Are we removing that one thing we talked about, or?
This is move to approve. If you have an amendment that you would like to suggest, now would be the time
Okay.
to do that.
I would like to remove on page 11, it's let me tell you what it is exactly. 4, it's actually J4H. I would like to remove that until the new council can discuss that.
To clarify that motion, Member Russell, you would like to remove any amendments to J4H, leaving J4H intact?
So the amendment is city council, right? I mean, we just have a black and white copy, but it's in
city
lighter
council
and
and-
underlined. That's the only thing that's changing.
Mhm.
So if we leave it this way, the new council would decide whether they're going to enforce it or not. And it could be discussed later anyway.
Yes, that's exactly right. The only thing that we proposed amending in J4H was to add, and so that city council and all members of the public. So we only added the word city council and so if we leave it as proposed, then in the past, it's really been up to the mayor to determine how much to enforce, when to give admonishments. But at any time, city council policies are approved by motion by city council. So at any time, city council can put this back on the agenda and make an amendment.
Okay, so if we approve it right now, so what happens if we take out city council and it just says, so all members of the public have a full, so what are we accomplishing by putting city council in there?
I wrote that in because I felt that city council, in addition to members of the public, should have a full, fair, and equal opportunity to be heard, so that it would say, for example, nobody should be booing a city council member when they speak, just like they shouldn't be booing somebody that's speaking during public comment. I felt that it should apply equally.
Okay. I suppose most of these are not egregious. There was the one thing I would like removed, then that one is okay. But J1C, the time clock allocated to speak shall start when the speaker reaches the podium. I'd like to take that one out.
Okay, so you're withdrawing the previous amendment
Yes.
and proposing an amendment to remove J1C in its entirety.
Yes.
So moved by Member Russell. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Member Woodward. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. This one was kind of the mayor's baby. So I think we can make any change that's required at the time that the next council discusses it. I'm not particularly partial to it, so I'm willing to vote to strike it at this point. Member Anderson?
I see the argument both ways, but I'll defend this here. I do think there have been a number of times where someone will come up and take, a minute or two getting set up, and to me, it looks sometimes intentional. I don't know if it is or not, but if there was some way of allowing for 30 minutes, 30 seconds of getting situated before beginning the clock or something like that, I think that could be fair. I see the challenge of, starting the time right when they get there. But some limit makes sense to me.
Member Noonan-Camp? Member Kolnick?
I actually kind of agree with Member Russell in this instance, only because I don't think it's practically, I don't think we're going to be able to enforce this equally. People are going to have a reasonable excuse why this specific time they weren't able to get settled. I think actually, if we get rid of this and either just decrease the amount of time that scheduled public comment ran, or even limited the ways that people can present. We call it public comment, but sometimes these people are, or our constituents are doing full videos, they're doing full PowerPoints. And I think it's a legitimate question to ask ourselves if we really want to have full media the whole time. So if we're worried about the amount of time that it's taking to do it, I don't think that this actually addresses that. I think that if we're worried about the time, we should either decrease the amount of time that people have for each individual comment, or we should limit the ways that they present, which seems to be mostly what is causing them to have a long time to prepare. So that's what I would say.
Member Woodward.
I think some of the, here's one that we've seen. A disabled person will come up here in a electric wheelchair, and they may be paraplegic, quadriplegic, and they don't know how the mic works. And somebody's explaining it to them, and I've seen people walked up and turned it on for them. So, that would be using up somebody's time when they may have something real important to say and we don't hear it.
Member Russell.
Thank you. And so I do have this question for Councilmember Newnenkamp, because I'm kind of thinking that perhaps, is it when people are using, people come up and some people aren't as quick as, getting their papers straightened, but when people come up and plug their what do you call it? Use the USB port, and perhaps there's problems with the system. Are those more the issues really than giving people time to get settled? And if that is the issue, then perhaps we could provide time for them to come early and make sure their USB works and they know how to find it. So is it mostly the USB, or are there other situations when people are taking too much time?
Member Anderson.
I think there's a combination of things going on that have become evidenced in these previous months, is that public comment has become an opportunity for kind of sideshow that it doesn't really have much to do with city council agenda items or with anything really relevant to the business we're accomplishing here. And I'm not sure that that a hard time clock is the solution here. I think maybe the multimedia presentation issue. I think it makes sense for people to come up if they have some papers to hand out. That makes sense, but to have these long drawn out multimedia presentations and that kind of thing, when it's not really related to their to what city council is actually all on about, or they're dealing with something campaign related or something during these things, that public comment has provided an opportunity, the liberal way we do it, for a lot of different things that I don't know are really appropriate for the way we do it. So I'd rather leave or take this portion out, but then address in a future revision something about how multimedia is used and that kind of thing.
Sounds like we might hit the sweet spot here. Any additional questions or comments? All right, with that, will the clerk please call a vote on the amendment?
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Newnham, Member Kolnick,
To be clear, this is to remove.
Correct.
Okay, aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Additional amendments? Member Woodward?
Yeah, I would like to move that under number 2A, number 1C, that the second sentence be modified to generally such election shall take place at the seating of the new council.
Member Woodward, would you
And
like
then
to?
finish it with, I was just reading what was being said there. After each general election, comma, or following an action to remove the mayor, or the mayor should resign from such position as needed.
Would you like to move a similar change in 2A, I think it is, regarding the election of the mayor pro tem?
They don't matter.
I love you too, Member
Steve,
Woodward.
I'll let you catch that one for the mayor pro tem.
All right, so this amendment is to change the language regarding the election procedure for the mayor. City Clerk, did you capture that language?
Well, could I see if I can correctly summarize it?
Yes.
That Councilmember Woodward's motion is to amend 2A1C and 2.
No, just 2A1C. He specifically excluded the mayor pro tem from the process.
No, we can do the mayor pro tem. I just didn't
I think he meant to include it.
see where it was. And I thought you were right on top of it, Steve, so we'd have you jump it.
So if I'm summarizing it correctly, to amend the council policies regarding electing of the mayor and the mayor pro tem to state that the election of the mayor and mayor pro tem shall take place at the swearing in and seating of a newly elected council after each general municipal election.
That works.
Did I correctly summarize the motion? Okay.
And we are including following resignation as a trailer.
Yes, yes, and I was just reading to where it would be
Got it.
revised.
Is there a second?
Second.
Member Anderson has the second. Comments?
Is there any other place in the policy manual where it uses that same language besides those two?
I don't think so, but perhaps I can look, and Councilmember Woodward's motion would include any other sections with similar language. We could include it in a single motion to correct all of that. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think there's any other sections, but I would like
Okay.
to double check.
All right, thank you.
I believe we may be ready for a vote on that amendment. City Clerk?
Okay. Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Newnham, Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
All right, any additional amendments? Seeing none, comments on the council policy update? Seeing none, City Clerk, we're ready for a vote.
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Newnham, Member Kolnick,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Niles, as always, for your work on this policy manual. And we're looking forward to a future discussion with the newly seated council. That brings us to general discussion. Item 12, Mayor's choice.
Do we not have the vote on then the underlying motion as amended?
We just did it.
Oh, we just had two votes, both on
We
Woodward?
voted on
and-
2 amendments and then we voted on the underlying
Okay,
motion.
I was typing what the amendments were, so I apologize. Thank you.
Yep. Mayor's Choice. Just one announcement for Mayor's Choice right now. There is a special meeting. The clerk gave me a piece of paper, which is sitting underneath all my other papers right now. Notice of special meeting on Monday, November 13th, 2023. On Monday, November 13th, we will have a special meeting with 2 executive sessions. The first executive session will be a joint meeting between City Council and the Inglewood Water and Sewer Board for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions pertaining to PFAS class action litigation and determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators related to litigation regarding PFAS class action matters. The second executive session will be to review the compensation and classification for the city attorney and the city manager. So again, September 13th will be a special meeting. We'll follow our normal special meeting policies, which involve us taking care of the study session items and then retiring to executive session, but not having public comment for that session. That's all I have. Member's choice.
I have a question.
Member Russell.
The last thing, I thought you said September, but it's November, correct?
It is November 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And if I did, I apologize. Thank you for that clarification, Member Russell. Member's choice. No? City manager's choice.
I thought I would have a little more time. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of updates for you tonight. I'll start with our mill and overlay project. We are wrapping up tomorrow and ultimately on Wednesday of this week. So we're very excited that that is coming to a conclusion. Got a late start, but are finishing without very many days of weather-related delays. Just to remind the public, that was $5.2 million in our mill and overlay program. That's the largest we've ever undertaken on mill and overlay. We also have spent $418,000 on all the chip sealing that you see more on the residential streets around town, as well as crack sealing that occurred before that. So altogether, we're looking at, close to $6 million on street improvements. Again, reminding the public that only $2 million of that was from the tax, the street improvement tax. The rest of that's been a combination of ARPA funds and dedicated CIP, capital improvement planning funds. We also are happy to report that the utility conduits have now been hung on the north side of the Dartmouth Bridge. That allows us to continue construction on that. We are on schedule. The south side is now under construction with the north side completed. We also had our kickoff meeting last week with the selected contractor for the South Inglewood Flood Reduction Program. As a reminder, that's a $23 million project. You probably saw the council request that Member Woodward did about our totals over the last 10 years of CIP. And unfortunately, we couldn't count, that expenditure will be made in 2024. And so we couldn't count that. But counting that project and all the projects over the last few years, we are really investing heavily in our infrastructure, have, as you know, in our budgeting process, held the line on staffing to really direct more and more funding towards infrastructure and towards particularly our underground infrastructures. We also are continuing to coordinate with FEMA regarding funding for the sinkhole. Our next deadline is December, so we're on track to provide all the details to them in advance of that date. Also had a question from Member Russell about the lead reduction. We are providing an online map for all of our residents. That was in your Friday report, and we'll continue. We'll keep posting that. You can look at your address. We've tested over 300 sites now. We're at about half of the number of lead service lines that we thought we would be, but we are predominantly in the newer part of town. And so, we expect as we get into the older parts of the city that number will increase, but we've been pleasantly surprised that we found fewer lead service lines than we expected. But again, we are potholing reporting as we committed to do, and we're at about 300 of those. So continue to look for those reports in your Friday report, but that project is going well. I'll also mention to the residents' question, we are not going on property if someone comes out of their yard, even though we have the right to do that. We are not testing their line if they object while we are on site. So we're trying to be respectful of people's wishes. And then last but not least, I want to just close with Veterans Day coming up with some of our discounts. That Member Week, you may remember a few years ago, asked that we look at doing more for our veterans. So Broken Tea has created on Veterans Day, we'll offer a free round of golf, green fees to veterans showing a valid military ID on the championship par 3 course, 1 round per veteran only. We also offer discounts at the Inglewood Rec Center and Malley Recreation Center. At Malley, it's a free social pass. We also have 15% off the punch passes at ERC, 15% off the recreation and aquatic classes for veterans. When it's at summertime, we also have discounts at Pirates Cove. But we're excited about the Veterans Day holiday coming up. City offices will be closed, and we want to honor all of our veterans on that day. Glad to answer any questions council may have.
Member Woodward.
Yes, are we looking at a study session on the 13th, which I believe is next week?
No, right now there is one study session that I'm aware of that's scheduled for the 20th, that we may be adding the continuation of the one tonight as well. On the 13th, I do not believe we have any study sessions besides the executive session.
Okay, very good. That was my question.
So when is, Veterans Day itself is on Saturday, correct?
Yes, it's on the 11th, but the city's observing it on the Friday, so the city offices will be closed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My apologies, I may have said that it was on Monday, but we're observing it on Friday. I will mention that I'll be taking 2 days off around that 3-day weekend, and in my absence, Tim Dodd will be acting city manager, as I will not have access to email and phone. Thanks.
All right, well, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.